A waitress returns $1,000 to a crime lord and changes both their lives forever. What would you do if survival meant stealing from the most dangerous man in the city? Nora Quinn made the opposite choice. One envelope, one decision, and nothing would ever be the same. This is a story about power, desperation, and the impossible space between right and wrong. Stay until the end. You won't believe where this goes. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The fluorescent lights in Sal's diner had been dying for 3 years. Nobody bothered replacing them anymore. They flickered in slow motion, casting everything in a sickly yellow wash that made the whole place look like it was already underwater. Nora Quinn moved through the narrow aisles between cracked vinyl booths with the mechanical precision of someone who'd stopped thinking about what she was doing a long time ago. Her feet ached. They always ached. The cheap sneakers she wore had worn through at the heel 2 months back, and she'd stuffed cardboard inside to cover the hole. It helped for about a week. Now she could feel every crack in the linoleum floor through the sole, every uneven tile sending little shocks up her calves. It was 10:47 on a Thursday night. The diner was mostly empty. A couple of truckers sat near the window, working through plates of eggs that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. An old woman nursed black coffee in the corner booth, her hand shaking slightly as she lifted the cup. Nora had seen her before. She came in 3 times a week, ordered the same thing, never left a tip. Nora didn't blame her. She looked like she was counting pennies too. Behind the counter, Frank Torres wiped down the same spot he'd been wiping for the last 10 minutes. He was 52, balding, with the kind of gut that spoke to decades of sampling his own cooking. His eyes were small and mean, the kind that tracked everything and gave nothing back. He'd owned Sal's for 9 years, ever since Sal himself had died choking on a chicken bone in the kitchen. Frank liked to remind people of that story. He thought it was funny. Nora thought it was the saddest thing she'd ever heard. "Table 6 needs a refill," Frank said without looking up. Nora grabbed the coffee pot and walked over. The trucker didn't acknowledge her when she poured. She wasn't expecting him to. Invisible. That's what she was here. A ghost in a stained apron moving through a world that didn't see her and didn't care. She was 23 years old and felt 40. The door chimed. Nora glanced up out of habit, then immediately wished she hadn't. The man who walked in didn't belong here. That was the first thing anyone would notice. Sal's diner was the kind of place where people came because they had nowhere else to go. Because it was cheap, because it was open late, because it didn't ask questions. This man looked like he'd never had to ask for anything in his life. He wore a black suit, expensive, the kind that didn't wrinkle. His shoes caught the dying light and threw it back polished and sharp. He was maybe 40, dark hair swept back, clean-shaven, with the kind of face that could have been handsome if it weren't so carefully empty. His eyes moved across the diner in one smooth sweep, cataloging everything, weighing every corner, every exit, every person. And then they landed on Nora. She felt it like a physical thing, a weight, a pressure. Behind the counter, Frank went completely still. The dish rag hung limp in his hand. His face had gone pale. The man walked to a booth near the back. He didn't sit immediately. He stood there for a moment, looking at the table like he was deciding whether it met his standards. Then he slid in, adjusting his cuffs with the kind of precision that suggested this was ritual, not vanity. Nora's heart was pounding. She didn't know why. Frank leaned close, his breath sour with onions. "That's Dante Moretti." The name hit her like cold water. Everyone knew that name. You didn't live in the city without knowing it. Dante Moretti wasn't just a businessman, though that's what the newspapers called him when they bothered to print his name at all. He owned half the waterfront. Restaurants, construction companies, shipping firms. Legitimate businesses with clean paperwork and cleaner lawyers. But underneath all that polish was something older, darker, the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. People who crossed Dante Moretti disappeared, not loudly, not publicly, they just stopped existing. "Serve him," Frank whispered. His voice shook. "And for the love of God, don't screw it up." Nora's hands were trembling as she grabbed her notepad. She forced herself to breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth. It didn't help. She walked over to his booth. The air felt colder near him, like he carried winter in his pockets. "What can I get you?" Her voice came out steadier than she expected. Dante Moretti didn't look at her right away. He was scrolling through his phone, his thumb moving in quick, efficient swipes. When he finally glanced up, his eyes were dark and utterly unreadable. Coffee. Black. Anything else? No. She wrote it down even though she didn't need to. It gave her hand something to do. She turned to leave. Wait. She froze. Dante was looking at her now, really looking. Not the way men usually looked at her, the truckers who let their eyes linger too long, the businessmen who smiled with too many teeth. This was different. This was assessment, like she was a problem he was trying to solve. You've worked here long? 2 years. You like it? The question caught her off guard. Nobody asked questions like that. Not here. It pays the bills, she said carefully. Something almost like amusement flickered across his face. Then it was gone. Coffee, he said again. She nodded and walked away. Her hands were still shaking when she poured. Frank was watching from behind the counter, his jaw tight. The old woman in the corner booth had stopped drinking her coffee. Even the truckers had gone quiet. Nora carried the cup back to Dante's table and set it down carefully. He didn't acknowledge her. His phone was ringing. He answered without hesitation. Talk. His voice was different now, sharper. There was an edge to it that hadn't been there before. Nora started to walk away, but his voice followed her across the diner. What do you mean, critical? She shouldn't have stopped, shouldn't have listened, but something in his tone made her pause. How bad? Silence. I'm on my way. He stood abruptly. The movement was so sudden, so violent, that Nora actually flinched. But Dante wasn't looking at her anymore. He wasn't looking at anything. His face had gone completely blank, but his hands were shaking. He threw 2 20s on the table and walked out. The door chimed behind him. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Nora stood there, staring at the booth. Frank appeared beside her, moving faster than she'd seen him move in months. Clean it, he said. Now. She grabbed her rag and walked over. The 20s were still on the table. She picked them up, intending to put them in the register. That's when she saw it. Tucked beneath the coffee cup, half hidden in shadow, was a white envelope. Nora glanced back at Frank. He was already retreating to the kitchen, his attention elsewhere. The truckers were talking again. The old woman had gone back to her coffee. Nobody was watching. Nora picked up the envelope. It was heavy, too heavy to be empty. She opened it. Inside were $100 bills, $1,000. Her vision blurred. Her hands went numb. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. $1,000. That was 3 months of rent. That was Danny's medication for half a year. That was the electricity bill, the overdue water notice, the collection letters that came every week like clockwork. That was survival. She looked around again. Still nobody watching. Frank was in the kitchen. The camera above the counter had been broken for 2 years. The red light didn't even blink anymore. Nobody would know. Her coworker, Rita, appeared beside her. Rita was 45, with dyed blonde hair and a cigarette voice. She'd been working at Sal's longer than Nora had been alive. Holy shit, Rita breathed, staring at the envelope. Is that real? Nora couldn't answer. You gonna take it? The question hung in the air like smoke. I don't know. Nora, Rita's voice dropped to a whisper. That's Dante Moretti. You think he's gonna miss $1,000? You think he even remembers leaving it? He got a phone call. His son. Exactly. He's got bigger problems. And you got rent due in 4 days. Nora closed the envelope. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Rita leaned closer. Nobody's watching, honey. Nobody cares. Take the money. Pay your bills. Buy your brother his meds. Live your goddamn life for once. Nora stared down at the envelope. $1,000. She thought about Danny. 15 years old, too thin, too pale, sleeping on a couch in their 1-bedroom apartment because they couldn't afford a second bed. She thought about the pills he needed, the ones that cost $80 a bottle, the ones insurance wouldn't cover because the cheaper version worked just as well, even though it didn't. She thought about the landlord's last notice, the one with the red letters that said final warning. She thought about the hospital, 3 years ago. Danny in a bed too big for his body, tubes in his arms, machines beeping in rhythm with his failing heart. She'd sat beside him for 17 hours straight, holding his hand, watching his chest rise and fall, praying to anything that would listen. He'd survived. Barely. But she remembered what it felt like to sit in that chair, the helplessness, the waiting, the silence. And she thought about Dante Moretti walking out of this diner with his hands shaking, his voice cracking on the phone. How bad? She closed her eyes. I can't, she whispered. Rita stared at her. What? I can't take it. Nora, I can't. She shoved the envelope into her apron pocket before she could change her mind, before the weight of it could drag her down. Rita shook her head slowly. You're insane. Maybe she was. Nora walked to the counter where Frank was sorting receipts. I need to leave early, she said. Frank didn't look up. You got 3 hours left on your shift. I know, but I need to go. Now he looked up. His eyes narrowed. You need to go. Yes. For what? Nora hesitated. She couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't tell him about the envelope burning a hole in her pocket, about the decision she'd made that defied every logical thought in her head. Family emergency, she said. Frank's expression didn't change. You leave now. Don't bother coming back. The words landed like a punch. What? You heard me. I got a business to run. I can't have people walking out whenever they feel like it. Frank, I've never missed a shift, and you're not going to start now. Get back to work. Nora felt something crack open inside her chest. Desperation, anger, the kind of rage that came from being pushed too far for too long. I'm leaving, she said quietly. Frank's face went red. Then you're fired. Fine. She untied her apron. Her hands were steady now. Steady in a way they hadn't been in years. She pulled the envelope from the pocket, held it for just a moment, then set it on the counter. Give this to Rita. Tell her she was right. She walked out before Frank could respond. The night air hit her like a slap, cold, sharp. The city stretched out in every direction, all concrete and broken streetlights and shadows that moved when you weren't looking. Nora stood on the sidewalk outside Sal's diner, unemployed, broke, and holding an envelope full of someone else's money. She should have kept it, should have listened to Rita, should have taken the miracle that had landed in her lap and run with it, but she couldn't, because somewhere across this city, Dante Moretti was sitting in a hospital room and she knew exactly what that felt like. She started walking. She had no idea where she was going. Dante Moretti wasn't the kind of man you could just find. He wasn't listed in the phone book. He didn't have a publicly known address. Men like him existed in the spaces between the world everyone else lived in. But Nora walked anyway. The streets were mostly empty. A few cars passed, headlights cutting through the dark. A group of teenagers huddled outside a convenience store, passing a cigarette between them. An old man pushed a shopping cart full of empty cans, muttering to himself. Nobody looked at her. She walked for blocks, her feet aching, her breath coming in short bursts. The envelope felt heavier with every step. At the corner of 5th and Brennan, she saw a homeless man sitting against a brick wall. He had a cardboard sign that read, Veteran, anything helps. His face was weathered and lined, his eyes distant. Nora stopped. Excuse me, she said. He looked up slowly. You know anything about Dante Moretti? The man's expression changed, something between fear and respect. Why are you asking? I need to find him. The man laughed. It was a harsh, broken sound. Nobody finds Dante Moretti, lady. He finds you. I have something that belongs to him. The man studied her for a long moment. Then he pointed down the street. There's a bodega 2 blocks that way. Owner's name is Sal. Not the diner Sal. Different guy. He used to work for the Morettis back in the day. Might know something, might not. But if you're serious about this, that's where I'd start. Thank you. She pressed a $5 bill into his hand. It was all she had. The bodega was exactly where he said it would be. A narrow storefront wedged between a laundromat and a boarded-up pawn shop. The lights inside were dim, the windows covered with faded advertisements for beer and lottery tickets. Nora pushed open the door. A bell chimed. The man behind the counter was in his 60s, gray-haired, with thick glasses, and hands that shook slightly as he counted change. He looked up when she entered. Help you? I'm looking for Dante Moretti. The man's hands stopped moving. Don't know him. I think you do. Lady, I don't know what you're talking about. Nora pulled out the envelope and set it on the counter. He left this at the diner where I work. I need to return it. The man stared at the envelope like it might explode. You're returning money to Dante Moretti. Yes. Are you insane? Probably. The man laughed despite himself. Then his face went serious. Listen to me very carefully. Dante Moretti is not a man you walk up to. He's not a man you bother. You take that money, you go home, and you forget you ever saw him. I can't do that. Why not? Because it's his. The man shook his head slowly. You got a death wish or something? I've got a conscience. Silence stretched between them. Finally, the man sighed. There's a private hospital on the north side, St. Catherine's. They got a wing for people with money, real money. If Moretti's got family in trouble, that's where they'd be. Thank you. Don't thank me. If this goes bad, I never talk to you. Nora left the bodega and kept walking. St. Catherine's Hospital was 40 minutes away on foot. The neighborhood changed as she walked. The broken streetlights gave way to functioning ones. The graffiti disappeared. The buildings got taller, cleaner, newer. By the time she reached the hospital, her feet were screaming. She pushed through the main entrance into a lobby that looked more like a hotel than a medical facility. Marble floors, leather chairs, a chandelier hanging from the ceiling. A security guard stepped in front of her immediately. Can I help you? I'm here to see Dante Moretti. The guard's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Name? Nora Quinn. Are you family? No. Then I can't let you through. I have something that belongs to him. You can leave it with me. I'll make sure he gets it. I need to give it to him personally. The guard's eyes narrowed. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Please, it's important. Now. Another guard appeared, then another. They surrounded her like she was a threat, like she was something dangerous instead of just desperate. Nora stood her ground. I'm not leaving until I see him. Ma'am, call him. Tell him Nora Quinn from Sal's Diner is here. Tell him I have his envelope. The first guard hesitated, then he pulled out a radio. We've got a situation in the lobby. Static crackled. Woman claiming she has something for Moretti. Says her name is Nora Quinn. More static. Then a voice, sharp and clear. Bring her up. The guards exchanged glances. One of them gestured toward the elevator. This way. Nora's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She followed them into the elevator. The doors closed. The numbers climbed. 3rd floor, 4th, 5th. They stopped on the 7th. The doors opened onto a hallway that was completely silent. Expensive art hung on the walls. The floor was polished marble. There were no sounds of machines, no intercoms, no nurses rushing past. This wasn't a hospital. This was a fortress disguised as one. At the end of the hall, 2 men stood outside a closed door. They were bigger than the lobby guards, harder, with the kind of stillness that came from years of violence held barely in check. One of them opened the door. Nora stepped inside. The room was dim. A single lamp cast long shadows across walls painted in muted grays. There was a hospital bed in the corner, surrounded by machines that beeped softly. A boy lay there, unconscious, his face bruised and swollen beyond recognition. And beside the bed, in a chair that looked too small for him, sat Dante Moretti. He looked up when she entered. His eyes were red. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nora pulled out the envelope and held it toward him. You left this, she said quietly. Dante stared at the envelope like he'd forgotten what money looked like. Then his gaze shifted to her face. Who are you? Nora Quinn. I was your waitress tonight. You followed me here. Yes. Why? Because this is yours. He didn't reach for the envelope. Didn't move at all. People don't return money to me, he said slowly. I'm not people. No. His voice was soft, dangerous. You're not. He stood. The movement was slow, controlled, but there was something coiled beneath it, something ready to spring. You came all the way here to return $1,000. Yes. Nobody does that. I just did. Dante took a step closer, then another. He was tall, taller than she'd realized in the diner. His presence filled the room like smoke. What's the angle? He asked. There's no angle. Everyone has an angle. Not me. He reached out and took the envelope. His fingers brushed hers for just a moment. They were cold. He opened it slowly, counting the bills with the kind of precision that suggested he didn't trust anything at face value. $1,000. Exactly. He looked at her again. You need money. It wasn't a question. Everyone needs money, Nora said. But you brought mine back. It wasn't mine to keep. Silence. Dante walked to the window and stared out at the city below. Light stretched to the horizon, a million lives burning in the dark. My son, he said quietly. Marco, 15 years old. Someone ambushed him outside his school, beat him unconscious, left him in an alley. Nora's chest tightened. They don't know if he'll wake up, Dante continued. His voice was completely flat now, emptied out. They don't know if there's brain damage. They don't know anything. I'm sorry. He turned to face her. Your brother, the one you need the medication for. How old is he? Nora's breath caught. How did you... I saw it in your eyes when I mentioned Marco's age. Recognition. You know what this feels like. She nodded slowly. 15. Same age. Yes. Dante walked back to the bed and looked down at his son. His expression was unreadable. I have resources you can't imagine, he said quietly. I could find the best doctors in the world. I could buy hospitals. I could make people disappear for what they did to him. He paused. But none of that changes the fact that I'm sitting here, helpless, waiting. I know, Nora whispered. Do you? 3 years ago, Danny collapsed during gym class. Heart condition nobody knew about. I sat in a room just like this one for 2 days straight. No sleep, no food, just waiting. Dante looked at her. He survived. Yes. You're lucky. I know. The machines beeped steadily. Marco's chest rose and fell in mechanical rhythm. Dante held out the envelope. Take it. I can't. Why not? Because I didn't come here for a reward. Then why did you come? Nora met his eyes. Because when you got that phone call, I saw your hands shaking, and I know what that feels like. The words hung between them. Dante lowered the envelope slowly. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, he said quietly, or the stupidest. Maybe both. Something almost like a smile touched his face. Then it was gone. Go home, Nora Quinn. What about go home? She turned toward the door. Her hand was on the handle when his voice stopped her. Wait. She looked back. Dante was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You said you lost your job tonight. Yes. Because of this. Because you left to find me. Yes. He nodded slowly, like he was making a decision. Someone will contact you tomorrow. For what? A job. A real one. One that pays better than any diner ever will. I don't want your charity. It's not charity. It's payment for something nobody's ever given me before. What's that? Dante's eyes were dark and unreadable. Honesty. Nora didn't know what to say. She left. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. The guards didn't look at her. The lobby was empty now, just polished floors reflecting cold light. She stepped out into the night. The city was the same as when she'd entered. Same streets, same shadows, same broken world grinding forward. But something had changed. Nora walked home slowly, her mind spinning. She'd given back $1,000. She'd lost her job. She'd walked into the lion's den and walked back out alive. And now Dante Moretti, one of the most dangerous men in the city, had promised her something. She didn't know if she should be terrified or relieved, maybe both. By the time she reached her apartment building, dawn was breaking. The sky had gone from black to deep purple, the first hints of light bleeding through the clouds. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her door. Her feet were screaming. Her whole body ached. Inside, Danny was asleep on the couch, exactly where she'd left him. His face was peaceful in the dim light, thin, pale, but alive. Nora sat down on the floor beside him and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She'd made her choice. Right or wrong, it was done. And somewhere across the city, in a hospital room she'd never see again, Dante Moretti sat beside his son's bed, holding an envelope full of money that had come back to him like a ghost. He didn't know what it meant yet. Neither did she. But something had been set in motion, something that couldn't be stopped. Nora closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come, because she knew, deep in her bones, in the place where truth lived before words could shape it, that her life had just changed forever, and there was no going back. Kikun. Nora woke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the floor beside her head. She'd fallen asleep there, slumped against the couch, with her neck bent at an angle that sent sharp pain down her spine the moment she moved. Her eyes felt like sandpaper. Her mouth tasted like copper. The phone kept buzzing. She grabbed it without looking at the screen and pressed it to her ear. Hello? Nora Quinn? The voice was unfamiliar, male, clipped and professional. Who's this? My name is Vincent Corello. I work for Mr. Moretti. He asked me to contact you regarding employment. Nora sat up too fast. Her vision swam. Danny stirred on the couch above her but didn't wake. Yeah, okay. Can you be at 1247 Harbor Boulevard at 9 this morning? She looked at the window. Gray light filtered through the thin curtains. She had no idea what time it was. What time is it now? 7:30. An hour and a half. Yeah, I can be there. Good. Ask for me at the front desk. Don't be late. The line went dead. Nora stared at the phone in her hand. Her heart was pounding again. The same way it had been pounding all night, every time she'd drifted close to sleep, only to jolt awake with the image of Dante Moretti's red-rimmed eyes burning behind her eyelids. She stood slowly, her joints protesting. Her feet were raw and blistered from the walk. She needed a shower. She needed coffee. She needed to figure out what the hell she'd just agreed to. Danny rolled over on the couch, his eyes fluttering open. Nora? Hey. She forced her voice to sound normal. Go back to sleep. What time is it? Early. He squinted at her. You look like shit. Language. You do, though. She couldn't argue with that. She probably looked exactly like someone who'd spent the night walking halfway across the city to return money to a crime lord and then slept on the floor. I got a job interview, she said. Danny sat up a little. Yeah? Yeah. Good one. Real one. What happened to the diner? I quit. His eyes widened. You quit? Nora, we can't afford... I know. That's why I got the interview. Trust me, okay? He stared at her for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. Okay. She went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. The water took 3 minutes to get hot. It always did. She stripped off her clothes and stepped under the spray, letting the heat work its way into her aching muscles. Her mind kept circling back to the hospital room, to Dante sitting beside his son's bed, to the way his voice had cracked when he'd said, they don't know if he'll wake up. She'd seen men break before. She'd seen her father break, slow and ugly, under the weight of too much drinking and too many debts. But this was different. Dante Moretti wasn't breaking, he was fracturing, controlled demolition instead of collapse, and she'd walked right into the middle of it. The shower ran cold before she was ready. She got out, dried off with a towel that had seen better days, and pulled on the only clean clothes she had left, black jeans with a hole in the knee and a gray sweater that used to belong to her mother. She looked in the mirror, not great, but not homeless either. Good enough. She left the apartment at 8:15. The bus took 40 minutes to get to Harbor Boulevard. She spent the entire ride staring out the window, watching the city transform block by block. The broken storefronts gave way to coffee shops. The graffiti disappeared. The people on the sidewalk started carrying briefcases instead of sleeping bags. By the time she got off at her stop, she was in a different world. 1247 Harbor Boulevard was a glass tower that reflected the morning sky like a mirror. The lobby was all marble and steel, with a reception desk that looked like it cost more than Nora's entire apartment building. She walked in feeling like an imposter. The woman at the desk looked up. She was maybe 30, with perfect makeup and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Can I help you? I'm here to see Vincent Corello. My name is Nora Quinn. The woman's smile didn't change, but something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. One moment. She picked up a phone and spoke quietly into it. Nora couldn't hear what she was saying. After a moment, she hung up. He'll be right down. Nora waited, The lobby was busy. People in suits walked past without looking at her. A man with silver hair talked loudly into his phone about stock prices. A woman in heels clicked by carrying a stack of folders. Nobody acknowledged her existence. Then the elevator doors opened and a man stepped out. Vincent Corello was maybe 45, lean and sharp-featured, with dark hair going gray at the temples. He wore a navy suit that fit like it had been made for him. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. His eyes were the coldest thing Nora had ever seen. "Miss Quinn." "That's me." He didn't offer to shake her hand. "This way." She followed him into the elevator. The doors closed. He pressed a button for the 15th floor. They rode in silence. Nora could feel him watching her out of the corner of his eye, measuring, weighing. "Mr. Moretti speaks highly of you," Vincent said finally. "We met once." "I know." The elevator dinged. The doors opened onto a hallway lined with offices, glass walls, expensive furniture, views of the harbor stretching out like something from a postcard. Vincent led her to a conference room at the end of the hall. Inside, there was a long table with leather chairs and nothing else. "Sit." She sat. Vincent remained standing. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at her like she was a problem he was trying to solve. "Do you know what we do here, Miss Quinn?" "No." "This building houses the administrative offices for Moretti Holdings. We manage restaurants, real estate developments, shipping contracts, and various other business interests. Everything is legitimate. Everything is above board. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good. Because if you work for us, you will be expected to maintain that legitimacy. No shortcuts, no favors, no turning a blind eye. This is not the kind of organization where people bend rules." Nora almost laughed. She didn't, but the urge was there. Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd seen it. "Is something funny?" "No." "You don't believe me." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." He walked to the window and stared out at the harbor. "Mr. Moretti has enemies," Vincent said quietly. "People who would love nothing more than to find proof that we operate outside the law. So we don't. We can't afford to. Every transaction is documented. Every dollar is accounted for. Every employee is vetted." He turned to face her. "Which brings me to you." Nora's stomach tightened. "You have no college education, no professional experience, no references. By all accounts, you should not be sitting in this room." "So why am I?" "Because Mr. Moretti asked me to hire you, and I don't question Mr. Moretti." Silence stretched between them. "But I will be watching you," Vincent continued. "Very closely. If you step out of line even once, you're gone. No warnings, no second chances. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good. You'll start in the restaurant division. Administrative work, filing, scheduling, inventory management. Nothing glamorous. The pay is $18 an hour. Health insurance after 90 days. Do you accept?" $18 an hour. Nora did the math in her head. That was nearly 3 times what she'd been making at the diner. "Yes." Vincent nodded. "You start Monday. Be here at 8. Don't be late." "I won't." He walked to the door and opened it. The meeting was over. Nora stood and followed him out. They rode the elevator down in silence. When the doors opened, Vincent stepped aside to let her pass. "Miss Quinn." She looked back. "Whatever you did to earn Mr. Moretti's attention," Vincent said slowly, "I hope it was worth it." Then he was gone. Nora walked out of the building feeling like she'd just made a deal with something she didn't understand. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Nora spent Saturday cleaning the apartment and trying not to think too hard about what she'd gotten herself into. Sunday, she took Danny to the clinic for his checkup. The doctor said his levels were stable. Good news. But the prescription still cost $73 she didn't have. She paid it anyway. By Monday morning, she was running on adrenaline and fear in equal measure. She showed up at 1247 Harbor Boulevard at 7:45. Vincent met her in the lobby with a woman named Claire, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, eyes that missed nothing. "Claire runs the restaurant division," Vincent said. "You'll report to her?" Claire looked Nora up and down like she was inspecting produce. "Follow me." Nora followed. The restaurant division occupied the 12th floor. It was a maze of cubicles and glass-walled offices, all buzzing with the kind of efficient energy that came from people who knew exactly what they were doing. Claire led her to a desk in the corner. It had a computer, a phone, and a stack of folders that looked like it might collapse under its own weight. "These are vendor contracts," Claire said, gesturing to the folders. "They need to be entered into the database by Friday. Think you can handle that?" "Yes." "Good. Questions?" "Where's the bathroom?" Claire pointed down the hall. "Second door on the left." Then she was gone. Nora sat down and stared at the stack of folders. This was it, her new life. She opened the first folder and got to work. The job itself wasn't hard. Repetitive, sure. Mind-numbing at times, but not hard. She entered vendor information into spreadsheets. She cross-referenced invoices. She answered phones when Claire was busy. By Wednesday, she'd found a rhythm. By Friday, she'd finished the entire stack. Claire seemed surprised when Nora told her. "All of them?" "Yes." Claire picked up a folder at random and flipped through it. Her eyes scanned the entries on the screen. After a moment, she nodded. "Good work." It was the first compliment Nora had received in longer than she could remember. "Thank you. Don't let it go to your head. Monday, you'll start on payroll reconciliation." "Okay." Claire started to walk away, then stopped. "You're not what I expected," she said. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more—" She trailed off, searching for the word. "Desperate?" Claire's expression didn't change. "Yes. I am desperate. I'm just good at hiding it." Something almost like respect flickered across Claire's face. Then it was gone. "Get out of here. It's late." Nora logged off her computer and grabbed her bag. The elevator was crowded with people leaving for the weekend. She squeezed in near the back and watched the numbers descend. On the ground floor, the doors opened and everyone filed out. Nora was halfway across the lobby when she saw him, Dante Moretti. He was standing near the reception desk, talking to a man in a gray suit. He looked different than he had in the hospital. Harder, more controlled. The grief had been locked away somewhere she couldn't see. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Dante said something to the man beside him and walked toward her. Nora's heart kicked into overdrive. "Miss Quinn." "Mr. Moretti." He looked at her for a long moment. "How's the job?" "Good. Fine. Thank you." "Vincent treating you well?" "He's been professional." "That's Vincent." Something almost like amusement touched his face. "He doesn't trust you." "I know." "Smart man." Nora didn't know what to say to that. Dante glanced toward the doors. "You walking home?" "Taking the bus." "Where do you live?" She told him. His expression darkened. "That's an hour from here." "Hour and 10, actually." "Let me give you a ride." "You don't have to—" "I know, but I'm offering." Nora hesitated. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to say no, to keep the distance, to not blur the lines any more than they already were. But her feet hurt, and the bus ride was long, and she was so goddamn tired. "Okay," she said quietly. Dante nodded. "This way." He led her out of the building to a black sedan parked at the curb. The driver got out immediately and opened the back door. Nora slid inside. The seats were leather. The air smelled like expensive cologne. Dante got in beside her. The door closed. The driver pulled away from the curb. They rode in silence for 3 blocks. Then Dante spoke. "How's your brother?" Nora looked at him sharply. "How do you know about Danny?" "I know everything about you, Miss Quinn. I know he's 15. I know he has a congenital heart condition. I know his medication costs more than you can afford. I know you've been covering his medical bills alone since your mother died 2 years ago." Nora's chest tightened. "You had me investigated." "Of course I did. You walked into my life holding $1,000 you could have kept. That kind of behavior doesn't make sense. So I needed to understand why." "And what did you find?" Dante turned to look at her. His eyes were dark and unreadable. A woman who takes care of her brother, who works 2 jobs to keep the lights on, who's never been arrested, never defaulted on a debt, never asked for help from anyone. He paused. "Someone who shouldn't exist in the world I live in." "What world is that?" "One where everyone wants something." "I don't want anything from you." "I know. That's the problem." The car stopped at a red light. Outside, the city moved past in blurred motion. People walking, Cars honking, life grinding forward. My son woke up yesterday, Dante said quietly. Nora's breath caught. Is he okay? No, but he's alive. The doctors say he'll recover eventually. That's good. Is it? His voice was flat. He's 15 years old, and someone tried to kill him. Because of me. Because of who I am and what I do. You don't know that. Yes, I do. The light changed. The car moved forward. I've spent my whole life building something, Dante continued. Empire, legacy, power. And all it took was one moment for me to realize none of it matters. Because when I got that phone call, when they told me Marco was in the hospital, everything I'd built turned to ash. Nora didn't know what to say. You reminded me of that, Dante said, turning to face her. When you walked into that room and gave me back my money, you reminded me that there are people in this world who still believe in doing the right thing, even when it costs them. It wasn't that hard. Yes, it was. Don't lie to yourself. The car pulled up in front of her building. The driver put it in park, but didn't get out. Dante looked at the building through the window, the cracked concrete steps, the rusted railing, the windows with bars. This is where you live. Yes. It's not safe. I manage. You shouldn't have to. Nora reached for the door handle. Thank you for the ride. Wait. She stopped. Dante pulled something from his jacket pocket and held it out to her. An envelope. Not white this time. Brown. Business-sized. What's this? Your first week's pay. In advance. I don't get paid until next Friday. Consider it a signing bonus. Nora stared at the envelope. I can't accept this. Why not? Because I haven't earned it yet. Yes, you have. How? Dante's eyes locked onto hers. You gave me something nobody else could. Hope. The idea that maybe not everyone in this world is corrupt. That maybe my son can grow up in a place where people still do the right thing. He pushed the envelope toward her. Take it. Buy your brother his medication, pay your rent, live your life without drowning for one goddamn month. Nora's hand trembled as she reached for the envelope. Inside were $2,000 bills, $2,000. Her vision blurred. This is too much. It's not nearly enough. She looked up at him. His face was serious, honest. Why are you doing this? Because you did something for me that nobody else would, and I pay my debts. The weight of the envelope felt impossible in her hands. Thank you, she whispered. Dante nodded. Go inside, lock your door, and be careful. Of what? His expression darkened. Vincent was right to be suspicious of you. Not everyone in my organization will understand why I've brought you in. Some of them will think you're a threat, or a weakness, or leverage. He leaned closer. If anyone approaches you outside of work, anyone, you call me immediately. Understand? Fear prickled down her spine. Yes. Good. She opened the door and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The car didn't move. Dante watched her walk up the steps, unlock the door, and disappear inside. Only then did the sedan pull away. Nora climbed the stairs to her apartment in a daze. Her hands were shaking again. The envelope felt like it was burning through her fingers. Inside, Danny was at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up when she entered. Hey, how was work? Nora set the envelope on the counter. Good, she managed. Danny's eyes went to the envelope. What's that? Money. How much? Enough. She walked to the bathroom and closed the door behind her. Then she sat down on the edge of the tub and let herself breathe. $2,000. More money than she'd ever held at once in her entire life. She should have felt relief, joy, something, but all she felt was dread. Because she knew, the same way she'd known the night she walked into that hospital, that this wasn't charity. This was investment. And Dante Moretti didn't make investments without expecting returns. The weekend passed too quickly. Nora paid the rent, bought Danny's medication, stocked the fridge with actual food instead of the canned soup and ramen they'd been living on for months. For 48 hours, she let herself pretend everything was normal. Then Monday came. She arrived at work at 7:45, the same as always. The lobby was quiet. The elevators were empty. When she stepped off on the 12th floor, Claire was waiting for her. Conference room. Now. Nora's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Just move. She followed Claire down the hall. The conference room was the same one where Vincent had interviewed her, but this time it wasn't empty. 3 men sat at the table. Vincent was one of them. The other 2 she didn't recognize. One was older, maybe 60, with white hair and a face like weathered stone. The other was younger, 30s, with a scar running from his eyebrow to his cheek. They all looked at her when she entered. "Sit down, Miss Quinn," Vincent said. She sat. The older man leaned forward, his hands folded on the table. "My name is Thomas Marconi. I'm head of operations for Moretti Holdings." Nora nodded. "Do you know why you're here?" "No. There's been a discrepancy in one of our accounts. $50,000 is missing from the restaurant division's operating fund." Nora's blood went cold. "I don't understand." "The money disappeared last Thursday, the same day you finished processing the vendor contracts." "I didn't take any money." "We're not saying you did. We're saying the timing is suspicious." The younger man with the scar spoke for the first time. His voice was rough, like gravel in a blender. "You've been here 2 weeks. Nobody knows you. Nobody trusts you. And now money's missing." He leaned back in his chair. "How's that look?" "I didn't do anything." "Then you won't mind if we search your desk," Thomas said calmly. It wasn't a question. Claire left the room and came back 3 minutes later carrying Nora's bag. She dumped it on the table. Wallet, keys, chapstick, a granola bar. Nothing unusual. Then Claire pulled something else from the bag. A flash drive. Nora stared at it. "That's not mine." "It was in your bag," Claire said. "I've never seen it before." Vincent picked up this flash drive and plugged it into a laptop. His fingers moved across the keyboard. After a moment, his expression went cold. "Financial records," he said quietly. "Account numbers. Transfer logs." He looked at Nora. "Everything someone would need to move money without being detected." "I didn't put that there." "Then how did it get in your bag?" "I don't know." Thomas stood. "Miss Quinn, I'm going to give you one chance to tell the truth. Did you steal from us?" "No." "Did you plant that drive in your own bag to make it look like you were framed?" "What? No." "Then explain how it got there." Nora's mind was racing. Someone had put it there. Someone who wanted her gone. But who? And why? "I can't," she whispered. Thomas nodded slowly. "Then you're fired. Effective immediately." "Wait. Security will escort you out. If we find any evidence that you were involved in the theft, we'll press charges. Do you understand?" Nora couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. The door opened. 2 security guards entered. "Miss Quinn," one of them said gently, "please come with us." She stood on shaking legs. Her vision was swimming. Her chest felt like it was caving in. This was wrong. All of it was wrong. The guards led her to the elevator. The doors closed. The numbers descended. Lobby. They walked her through the marble and steel, past the reception desk, past the people in suits who didn't look at her. Outside, the morning sun was brutal and bright. One of the guards handed her a box. Her personal belongings, the few things that had been at her desk. "You're not allowed back in the building," he said. "If you return, you'll be arrested for trespassing." Then they went back inside. Nora stood on the sidewalk, clutching the box, feeling like the world had just collapsed around her. She'd lost everything. Again. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with trembling hands. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello?" "Miss Quinn." The voice was unfamiliar, male, calm. "Who is this?" "A friend. Someone who knows you didn't steal that money." Nora's heart stopped. "How do you—" "Meet me at Pier 47 in 1 hour. Come alone. Don't tell anyone." "Why should I trust you?" "Because if you don't, the people who framed you will make sure you never work in this city again, and your brother will lose his medication, and you'll lose everything." The line went dead. Nora stood there, staring at her phone. Every instinct screamed at her to ignore it, to go home, to hide. But she couldn't, because whoever had just called knew the truth, and she had to know why. She started walking. Pier 47 was on the waterfront, 30 minutes away on foot. The box was heavy in her arms. By the time she reached the pier, her shoulders were screaming. The pier was mostly abandoned. A few fishermen, some seagulls, the smell of salt and rot. A man stood at the far end, looking out at the water. Nora approached slowly. He turned when she was 10 feet away. It was the younger man from the meeting, the one with the scar. "You," she breathed. He smiled. It wasn't friendly. "Surprised? You accused me of stealing." "I had to. Vincent was watching." "I don't understand." The man walked closer. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "My name is Marco Sal." "My name is Marco Salvatore," the man said. "And you're in more danger than you realize." Nora took a step back. The box in her arms felt heavier than it should. The pier stretched behind her like a plank, and the water below looked black and endless. "You set me up." "No, I exposed you." "What the hell does that mean?" Marco's hand moved to his jacket. Nora tensed, but he only pulled out a cigarette. He lit it with a silver lighter, took a drag, and exhaled smoke into the salt air. "You think you're the first person Dante Moretti has brought into the organization?" Marco asked. "You think you're special?" "I never said I was special." "But you believed it when he gave you that job, when he handed you $2,000 like it was nothing. You believed you were different." Nora's jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for any of it." "No. You just walked into a hospital and handed him back his money. A gesture so pure, so impossibly clean, that a man like Dante couldn't help but be moved." Marco's voice dripped with contempt. "You know what I saw when I heard that story? A con. A setup. Someone playing the long game." "It wasn't a con." "Then you're just stupid, which is worse." The cigarette burned between his fingers. Ash fell to the weathered wood. "Dante Moretti doesn't give people jobs out of kindness," Marco continued. "He gives them jobs because they're useful. And right now, you're very useful." "For what?" Marco smiled. "Bait." The word hung in the air like a knife. Nora's mind raced. "Bait for what? For who?" "I don't understand." "Of course you don't. That's the point." Marco took another drag. "There's a war coming, Miss Quinn, one that's been building for years. And Dante just threw you into the middle of it." "What war?" "The kind where people die. Where loyalties get tested. Where weaknesses get exploited." He flicked ash into the wind. "And you? You're his weakness now." Nora's breath came faster. "I'm nobody. You were nobody. But then you did something nobody does. You gave him back his money. You saw him vulnerable. You reminded him he's human." Marco's eyes went cold. "And now everyone knows it." "Who's everyone?" "The people who want him dead." The wind picked up. Nora's hair whipped across her face. She pushed it back with shaking hands. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand what you've walked into. This isn't some story where the waitress saves the mob boss and they live happily ever after. This is real, and people are going to die because of you." "That's not my fault." "Isn't it?" Marco stepped closer. "You made a choice. You returned that money. You took that job. Every step you chose this. And now you have to live with the consequences." Nora's throat felt tight. "The flash drive. You planted it." "I didn't plant anything. It was already there." "That's impossible. I never—" "Someone put it in your bag last week. Wednesday, probably. When you went to the bathroom. When you left your desk for coffee. Doesn't matter when. What matters is it was there. And today we found it." "Who put it there?" Marco's expression didn't change. "Does it matter?" "Yes." "No, it doesn't. Because whether you stole that money or not, everyone in that building now thinks you did. Your reputation is destroyed. Your credibility is gone. You're finished." Nora felt something crack inside her chest. The weight of it, the job, the hope, the fragile possibility that her life might actually get better. All of it shattered in an instant. "Why?" Her voice broke. "Why would anyone do this to me?" "To hurt Dante, to prove he's weak, to show that he's making emotional decisions instead of strategic ones." Marco dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his heel. "You were a test, and he failed." "I didn't ask to be a test." "Nobody does." The water lapped against the pier supports below. Somewhere behind them, a seagull screamed. Nora's hands tightened on the box. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to disappear." "What?" "Leave the city, tonight. Take your brother and go somewhere Dante can't find you, somewhere his enemies can't use you against him." "I don't have money for that." "Yes, you do. $2,000. That's enough to get far away from here. That's for rent, for Danny's medication, for survival, which is exactly what you need it for now. Marco's voice hardened. Listen to me very carefully. There are people in Dante's organization who think you're a threat. There are people outside his organization who think you're an opportunity. Either way, you're a target, and targets don't last long in this world. Nora's mind spun. Everything was happening too fast, too wrong. Dante wouldn't let anything happen to me. Dante couldn't protect his own son. What makes you think he can protect you? The words hit like a punch. You need to leave, Marco said quietly, before this gets worse. How could it get worse? You really want to find out? Nora stared at him. His face was hard, unmoved. He wasn't bluffing. If I run, they'll think I'm guilty. They already think you're guilty. Then running proves it. Staying gets you killed. The choice crystallized in front of her. Run and live as a thief, stay and die as collateral. Neither option felt real. I need to talk to Dante, she said. Marco laughed. It was a bitter sound. You think he'll see you? After this? You're toxic now, radioactive. The moment you walked out of that building, you stopped being useful and started being a liability. He gave me that money. He told me to call if I was in trouble. And if you call, you'll lead them right to him. Is that what you want? Nora's phone felt like lead in her pocket. Marco checked his watch. You've got until midnight. After that, I can't help you. You're not helping me now. I'm keeping you alive. That's more than anyone else is doing. He turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed on the pier, steady and final. Nora stood there alone, holding a box of worthless belongings, feeling the city close in around her like a fist. She walked home in a daze. The streets blurred together. The faces of strangers became indistinct. By the time she reached her building, the sun was high and brutal. She climbed the stairs slowly. Inside the apartment, Danny was on the couch watching television. He looked up when she entered. You're home early. Nora set the box down. Yeah. What's in the box? Nothing important. Danny's eyes narrowed. What happened? Nothing. Nora? She walked to the window and stared out at the street below. A car passed. A woman pushed a stroller. Life continued like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I lost the job, she said quietly. Silence. Then Danny stood. What? Why? They think I stole money. Did you? She turned to face him. No. Then tell them that. I did. They didn't believe me. Danny's face went pale. What are we going to do? I don't know. Nora, we can't. The rent is due in 2 weeks. My medication. I know. So what are we going to do? She wanted to tell him the truth, that they were in danger, that someone had framed her, that they might need to leave the city tonight and never come back, but the words wouldn't come. I'll figure it out, she said instead. Danny stared at her. You always say that. Because I always do. This is different. I know. He sat back down on the couch. His hands were shaking. I'm tired of this. I know. I'm tired of being broke. I'm tired of you working yourself to death. I'm tired of feeling like everything's about to fall apart. Danny, I should get a job. You're 15. So, I can work, I can help. You need to focus on school. School doesn't matter if we're homeless. Nora's chest tightened. He was right. She hated that he was right. Just give me some time, she said. I'll fix this. How? I don't know yet. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Unknown number again. Her finger hovered over the screen. Marco's warning echoed in her head. Don't call Dante. Don't lead them to him. But what choice did she have? She answered. Hello? Miss Quinn. The voice wasn't Marco's. It was older, rougher. Who is this? Someone who wants to help you. I don't need help. Yes, you do. You were fired this morning, accused of theft. Your name is circulating through certain channels as unreliable, untrustworthy. By tomorrow, you won't be able to get a job anywhere in this city. Nora's blood ran cold. How do you know that? Because I'm the one who made sure of it. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. Why? To give you a choice. You can keep pretending you're going to fix this on your own, or you can accept reality and work with me. Work with you how? I want information on Dante Moretti, his schedule, his routines, his vulnerabilities, and you're going to give it to me. I don't know anything. You know more than you think. You've been inside his building. You've ridden in his car. You've seen how he operates when he thinks nobody's watching. The voice paused. And if you don't help me, your brother's medication gets cut off, permanently. Nora's vision blurred. You can't do that. I already did. One phone call. That's all it took. His prescription is flagged in the system now. No pharmacy in the state will fill it. That's illegal. So is what I'll do to you if you refuse. Her hand tightened on the phone. Who are you? Someone who's been waiting a long time for Dante Moretti to make a mistake. And you, Miss Quinn, are that mistake. I won't help you. Then your brother dies, slowly, painfully, while you watch. The line went dead. Nora stood there, shaking. Danny was looking at her. Who was that? Wrong number. You're lying. Danny, stop lying to me. His voice cracked. Something's wrong. I can see it. Just tell me what's happening. Nora sat down on the floor. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. We're in trouble, she whispered. What kind of trouble? The kind I don't know how to fix. Danny moved to sit beside her. Is it because of that guy? The one who gave you the job? Yes? The one Mom used to talk about? Dante Moretti? Nora's head snapped up. Mom talked about him? Sometimes, when she thought I wasn't listening, she said he was dangerous, that people who got close to him never walked away clean. She was right. Then why did you take the job? Because I thought it would help us. I thought. She trailed off. What had she thought? That Dante was different? That she was special? That one good deed would change everything? Marco was right. She'd been stupid. We need to leave, Danny said quietly. What? Leave the city, tonight, before it gets worse. We can't just leave. Why not? Because this is our home. This hasn't been home for a long time, Nora. It's just where we sleep. He was 15 years old and he sounded 40. Nora closed her eyes. I have $2,000. That's enough to get us somewhere. Find a new place. Start over. Then let's do it. What about your medication? We'll figure it out. Danny, I'd rather die trying to live free than live trapped like this. The words hit her like glass. She looked at him, really looked at him. He was too thin, too pale, but his eyes were clear, determined. He wasn't a child anymore. Maybe he never had been. Okay, she said. Pack a bag. Only what you can carry. We leave in 2 hours. Danny nodded and stood. Nora stayed on the floor staring at the wall. Running meant abandoning everything, the apartment, the city, any chance of proving her innocence. But staying meant becoming a pawn in a war she didn't understand. She pulled out her phone and stared at Dante's number, the one he'd given her, the one she was supposed to call if she was in trouble. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she heard it. Footsteps in the hallway, heavy, deliberate. They stopped outside her door. Nora's breath caught. A knock. 3 sharp raps. She stood slowly. Danny appeared in the bedroom doorway, his eyes wide. Don't open it, he whispered. Another knock. Harder this time. Miss Quinn? A man's voice. Unfamiliar. We need to talk. Who is it? Friends of Mr. Moretti. Open the door. Nora's hand moved to the deadbolt. Her fingers trembled. How do I know you're telling the truth? Because if we wanted to hurt you, we wouldn't have knocked. The logic was terrible, but her options were limited. She opened the door a crack. 2 men stood in the hallway. Both wore dark suits. Both had the kind of faces that had seen violence and forgotten to be bothered by it. The one on the left spoke first. Vincent sent us. Vincent fired me. That was business. This is personal. I don't understand. The man on the right pulled out a phone and held it up. On the screen was a photo of Marco Salvatore. You met with this man today. It wasn't a question. Yes. What did he tell you? That I should leave the city. The 2 men exchanged glances. Did he say why? He said I was bait. That people were using me to hurt Dante. The man on the left nodded slowly. He wasn't lying. Who is he? Marco Salvatore works for the Rossini family. They're one of Dante's competitors, have been for 20 years. Nora's stomach dropped. He said his name was a lie. Everything he told you was a lie, or close enough to it. Why would he warn me then? Because he wanted you scared, desperate, ready to run. And when you run, you lead us right to Dante. I don't know where Dante is. You have his number. You'll call him, and when you do, we'll trace it. We? I thought you worked for Dante. The man smiled. It was the worst thing Nora had ever seen. We work for whoever pays. Right now, that's the Rossinis. Nora tried to slam the door. The man's boot caught it. He pushed inside. The second man followed. Danny ran forward. Get out! The first man backhanded him casually. Danny hit the floor hard. Nora screamed. The man grabbed her by the throat and slammed her against the wall. Her vision went white. Call Dante, he said calmly. Now. No. His grip tightened. She couldn't breathe. Call him, or I kill your brother. Danny was on the floor bleeding from his mouth, staring up at them with terrified eyes. Nora's hand fumbled for her phone. The man released her throat. She gasped for air. Smart girl. She pulled up Dante's number. Her finger hovered over the call button. If she called, she'd lead them to him. Marco had been right about that, at least. If she didn't, Danny died. There was no good choice. There never had been. She pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, then a voice. Miss Quinn? Dante. Her voice cracked. I need help. Where are you? My apartment. There are men here. The first man yanked the phone from her hand and crushed it under his heel. Good enough, he said. He pulled out his own phone and made a call. It's done. We got the trace. He's at the Harbor District. Warehouse 12. A pause. Understood. He hung up and looked at Nora. Thank you for your cooperation. Then he pulled out a gun. Danny screamed. The man aimed at Nora's chest. Wait! The door exploded inward, wood splintered, the frame shattered. 3 men poured into the room. They moved like liquid violence, fast and certain. Gunshots. 2, 3. The man with the gun dropped. The second man tried to run. He made it 3 steps before a bullet took him in the back. Silence. Nora stood frozen against the wall, her ears ringing. One of the new men stepped forward. He was older, gray-haired, with eyes like stone. Thomas Marconi. Miss Quinn, he said calmly. We need to leave. Now. I don't... Now. Danny was already moving. He grabbed Nora's hand and pulled her toward the door. They ran. Down the stairs, out into the street. A black SUV waited at the curb, engine running. Thomas opened the door. Get in. They got in. The vehicle pulled away before the door even closed. Nora stared out the window as her building disappeared behind them. Everything she owned was in that apartment, every piece of her old life, gone. Where are we going? She managed. Thomas didn't look at her. Somewhere safe. There's no such thing. Not for you, not anymore. The SUV turned onto the highway. The city fell away behind them, replaced by warehouses and industrial yards. After 20 minutes, they stopped. They were in a parking lot behind a building with no windows, concrete and steel and nothing else. Thomas opened the door. Out! They followed him inside. The building was empty except for one room at the back. Inside, a single light hung from the ceiling. A table, 2 chairs. And sitting in one of them was Dante Moretti. He looked up when they entered. His face was completely blank. Sit down, Miss Quinn. Nora sat. Danny stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. Dante folded his hands on the table. You called me. They were going to kill Danny. I know. They wanted to trace your location. I know that too. Then why did you answer? Because I needed to know if you'd make the call. The words landed like stones. Nora stared at him. You knew this would happen. I suspected. And you let it happen anyway. Yes. Her hands clenched into fists. Why? Because I needed to know who I could trust. Dante's eyes were dark and cold. The Rossinis have someone inside my organization. Someone close. Someone feeding them information. So you used me as bait? Yes. You son of a... I also sent Thomas to pull you out. You're alive. Your brother's alive. That was always the plan. What if your plan failed? It didn't. Nora wanted to scream, to hit him, to run, but there was nowhere left to run. What happens now? She asked quietly. Dante stood. Now you help me find the traitor. I don't know anything. You know more than you think. You've been inside the organization. You've seen who moves where, who talks to who had access to your bag. The flash drive. Someone planted evidence on me, Nora said slowly. Yes. To make it look like I stole money. Yes. To get me fired. Yes. So I'd be desperate, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. Exactly. The pieces were falling into place. The whole thing had been a setup. Not just today, all of it, from the moment she'd walked into that hospital. You knew, she whispered. You knew they'd come after me. That's why you gave me the job. That's why you gave me the money. You were dangling me in front of them like a worm on a hook. Dante didn't deny it. You used me. Yes. You put my brother in danger. Yes. Why? Because wars aren't won by playing fair. They're won by being willing to sacrifice whatever it takes. Nora stood. Her chair scraped against concrete. I'm not your sacrifice. No, you're my weapon. Dante's voice was ice. And whether you like it or not, you're in this now, all the way. Because the moment you called me, the moment you led them to that trace, you became part of this war, and the only way out is through. I didn't ask for this. Nobody does. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. What do you want from me? Nora asked. I want you to go back. Back where? To the organization, to your job. They fired me. I'll reverse it. I'll say the evidence was fabricated, that you've been cleared. Nobody will believe that. They don't have to believe it. They just have to accept it. Nora's mind spun. And then what? Then you watch. You listen. You find out who planted that flash drive. And when you do, you tell me. And if I refuse? Dante's expression didn't change. Then the Rossinis win. They destroy my organization from the inside. They take control of everything I've built. And eventually they come for you anyway. Because you're a loose end, and loose ends don't survive. The truth of it settled over her like ash. There was no refusing. There had never been a choice. How do I know I can trust you? Nora asked quietly. You can't. Then why should I do this? Dante walked around the table until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the lines in his face, the exhaustion, the weight. Because despite everything, despite the fact that I used you and lied to you and put you in danger, I'm the only person in this city who's kept you alive. His voice dropped. And because if you help me end this war, I'll make sure you and your brother never have to worry about money or safety or survival ever again. Promises are cheap. Mine aren't. Nora looked into his eyes, searching for something human, something real. She found it, but it was buried so deep she almost missed it. If I do this, she said slowly, and I find your traitor, what happens to them? They disappear. You mean you kill them? I mean they stop being a problem. That's the same thing. Yes. Nora turned to Danny. He was pale, shaking, but he met her eyes. It's your choice, he said quietly. Was it, though? Or had that choice been made the moment she'd picked up Dante's envelope in a dying diner and decided to give it back? Maybe Marco was right. Maybe she'd chosen this from the very beginning. Okay, she whispered. Dante nodded. Good. Thomas will take you somewhere safe tonight. Tomorrow you'll return to work. Act normal. Don't trust anyone. And whatever you do, don't let them know you're looking. What if they already know? Then you'll find out very quickly. He walked toward the door, then he stopped and looked back. One more thing, Miss Quinn. What? Thank you. For what? For calling me. Even when you knew it was a trap, even when you knew it might get you killed, you called anyway. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You just made the right one. Then he was gone. Thomas stepped forward. Let's go. Nora and Danny followed him out into the night. The SUV was waiting. As they drove through the dark, Nora stared out the window at the city passing by in blurred light. She'd thought returning that envelope would save her. Instead, it had destroyed her. And now she was trapped in a war she didn't understand, working for a man she couldn't trust, hunting a traitor who wanted her dead. Danny's hand found hers in the dark. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. Nora squeezed his fingers. "Yeah," she lied. "We are." But deep down, she knew the truth. Nothing was ever going to be okay again. Back. The safe house was a third-floor apartment in a building that looked like it had given up on existing 20 years ago. Peeling paint, broken mailboxes, the smell of mold and old cigarettes baked into the walls. Thomas unlocked the door and stepped aside. "It's not much," he said, "but it's clean, and nobody knows about it except me and Dante." Nora walked in first. Danny followed close behind, his hand still gripping hers like she might disappear if he let go. The apartment had 2 rooms. A main space with a couch that sagged in the middle, a kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge, and a window that looked out onto a brick wall. The second room had a mattress on the floor and nothing else. "There's food in the fridge," Thomas said. "Enough for a few days. Don't leave. Don't call anyone. Don't even look out the window unless you have to." "How long do we stay here?" Nora asked. "Until tomorrow morning. Then I'll pick you up at 7 and take you back to the office." "What about Danny?" Thomas looked at the boy. "He stays here." "Alone?" "Someone will check on him, but he can't be seen with you, not now, not until this is over." Danny's face went pale, but he didn't argue. Thomas moved toward the door. "Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Dante. And if someone knocks and you don't recognize the voice, you go out the fire escape and you run. Understand?" "Yes," Nora whispered. Thomas left. The lock clicked into place. Silence filled the apartment like water. Danny sat down on the couch. His hands were shaking. There was dried blood at the corner of his mouth from where the man had hit him. Nora grabbed a dish towel from the kitchenette, ran it under cold water, and knelt beside him. "Let me see." He tilted his head. She pressed the towel gently to his lip. He winced, but didn't pull away. "Does it hurt?" "Not as much as everything else." She cleaned the blood away. The cut wasn't deep. It would heal. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" "For all of this. For dragging you into something you didn't ask for." Danny looked at her. "You didn't drag me into anything. We were already in it. We've been in it since Mom died." "That's different." "How?" "Because that was just life. This is—" She stopped. "What was this? A war? A trap? A nightmare with no exit?" "Survival," Danny finished. "Same as it's always been." Nora sat back on her heels. "You're too young to talk like that." "I'm too young for a lot of things. Doesn't mean they're not true." He was right. He'd been right about a lot of things lately. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the brick wall stared back. No sky, no light, just stone. "What do you think Mom would say?" Danny asked. "If she knew what we were doing?" Nora closed her eyes. "She'd say we were idiots." "Probably. She'd also say we didn't have a choice." "Do we?" "I don't know anymore." Danny lay down on the couch, curling onto his side. "Wake me up if anything happens." "I will." Within minutes, his breathing evened out. He was asleep. Nora stood at the window and watched the darkness. Tomorrow she'd go back into Dante's world. She'd smile. She'd work. She'd pretend everything was normal. And she'd hunt for a traitor who wanted her dead. The night stretched long and sleepless. At 6:55 the next morning, Thomas knocked 3 times. Nora checked through the peephole before opening the door. "Ready?" he asked. "No." "Good. That means you're thinking clearly." Danny was still asleep on the couch. Nora wrote him a quick note and left it on the counter. "Stay inside. I'll be back tonight. Love you." She followed Thomas down to the street. The SUV was idling at the curb. The drive to Harbor Boulevard took 30 minutes. Thomas didn't speak. Nora didn't ask him to. When they pulled up in front of the glass tower, her stomach twisted into knots. "Remember," Thomas said, "act normal. Trust no one. And if you find anything, you call Dante immediately." "What if I don't find anything?" "Then we're all in trouble." He drove away before she could respond. Nora stood on the sidewalk, staring up at the building. The morning sun reflected off the glass like fire. She walked inside. The lobby was busy, people in suits, coffee cups, the hum of controlled chaos. Nobody looked at her. She took the elevator to the 12th floor. When the doors opened, Claire was waiting. "Miss Quinn." "Claire?" "Follow me." They walked to the same conference room where Nora had been fired 2 days ago. Inside, Vincent sat at the table. His face was unreadable. "Sit down," he said. Nora sat. Vincent slid a folder across the table. "This is your official reinstatement. The accusations against you have been retracted. The investigation concluded that the evidence was planted by an external party attempting to destabilize our operations." "Who planted it?" "That's still under investigation." "But I'm cleared." "You're cleared." Nora opened the folder. Inside was a letter on company letterhead. It said everything Vincent had just said, only in legal language that made it sound less like an apology and more like a threat. "Sign the last page," Vincent said. She signed. Vincent took the folder back. "You'll return to your previous position. Same desk, same responsibilities. If anyone asks, you were wrongfully accused and we've made amends." What if they don't believe that? Then they'll keep it to themselves, because questioning this decision means questioning Dante, and nobody's stupid enough to do that. Claire gestured toward the door. "Let's go." Nora followed her back to the cubicle maze. Her desk looked exactly as she'd left it. The computer, the phone, the stack of folders. "Get to work," Claire said. Then she was gone. Nora sat down slowly. Around her, the office hummed with activity. People typed, phones rang, conversations overlapped in a constant drone. Nobody acknowledged her, nobody looked at her. It was like she'd never left. She logged into her computer and stared at the screen. Somewhere in this building was a traitor, someone who'd planted evidence, someone who'd sold information to the Rossinis, someone who wanted Dante dead. And she was supposed to find them. With what? Intuition? Luck? She opened her email. 300 unread messages. Most were automated reports, vendor updates, invoicing reminders. Nothing useful. She minimized the email and pulled up the employee directory instead. Faces and names scrolled past. She recognized a few. Most were strangers. How was she supposed to find a traitor among hundreds of people? Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Unknown number. Her chest tightened. She answered. "Hello? Miss Quinn." The voice was familiar. Marco Salvatore. "How did you get this number?" "I have all your numbers. I told you. I know everything." "What do you want?" "To help you." "You tried to kill me." "No, I tried to warn you. The men who showed up at your apartment? That wasn't me. That was the Rossinis cleaning up loose ends. You work for them. I work for myself. The Rossinis pay me. Dante pays other people. It's all the same game." Nora's hand tightened on the phone. "Why are you calling?" "Because you're looking for the wrong person." "What does that mean?" "Dante told you to find the traitor inside his organization, but you're assuming there's only one." The words hit like ice water. "What?" "There are 3, Marco said quietly. 3 people feeding information to the Rossinis. And if you expose one without finding the others, they'll disappear, and Dante will never know who betrayed him." "How do you know this?" "Because I'm the one who recruited them." Nora's breath stopped. "Why are you telling me?" "Because I like you, Miss Quinn. You're honest. Rare quality in this world. And I'd hate to see you get killed because you don't know what you're walking into." "If you like me so much, why did you set me up?" "I didn't set you up. I gave you information. What you did with it was your choice." "You told me to run." "And you should have, but you didn't, which means you're either very brave or very stupid. Either way, you're still alive. That counts for something." "Who are the traitors?" "I'm not going to tell you that. Where's the fun in that? This isn't a game. Everything's a game. You just don't know the rules yet." The line went dead. Nora stared at her phone. 3 traitors. Not 1. 3. She looked around the office. Faces bent over keyboards. Voices murmuring into phones. Everyone looked normal. Everyone looked innocent. But 3 of them weren't. Her computer chimed. New email. She clicked it open. The sender was an internal address she didn't recognize. The subject line was blank. Inside was a single sentence. Check the vendor logs from March 14th. No signature, no explanation. Nora's pulse quickened. She pulled up the database and navigated to the vendor logs. March 14th was 3 months ago. She filtered the entries by date. 47 transactions. Invoices, payments, nothing unusual. Then she saw it. A payment to a company called Apex Logistics. $50,000. Marked as a shipping fee. She cross-referenced the company name in the vendor directory. No results. Apex Logistics didn't exist. Nora's stomach dropped. She checked the authorization signature on the payment. Claire Donovan, her supervisor. Nora sat back in her chair. Her mind raced. Claire had authorized a $50,000 payment to a fake company. That was embezzlement, or money laundering, or both. But was it connected to the Rossinis? She needed more information. She printed the transaction record and folded it into her pocket. Then she stood and walked toward Claire's office. The door was open. Claire sat behind her desk, typing rapidly on her keyboard. She looked up when Nora appeared. Yes? I had a question about the vendor logs. What about them? There's a payment to Apex Logistics from March. I can't find them in the directory. Claire's expression didn't change. It's an overseas contractor. They're not in the main directory. Do you have their information? I need to update the records. I'll send it to you later. I can wait. I said I'll send it to you later. The edge in Claire's voice was sharp. Nora nodded. Okay, thanks. She walked back to her desk. Claire was lying. That much was obvious, but was she lying because she was stealing, or because she was working with the Rossinis, or both? Nora sat down and pulled out her phone. She opened a text to Dante's number. Found something. Need to talk. The response came immediately. Not over text. Meet me at the usual place. 8 p.m. Nora didn't know what the usual place was, but she assumed Thomas would tell her. She deleted the conversation and put her phone away. The rest of the day crawled by. Every time Claire walked past, Nora's heart jumped. Every time someone looked at her, she wondered if they knew. At 5 o'clock, she logged off and left. Thomas was waiting in the lobby. Come on. She followed him to the SUV. Where are we going? Dante's estate, north of the city. What about Danny? He's fine. Someone's with him. Who? Someone Dante trusts. That wasn't reassuring. They drove for an hour. The city gave way to suburbs, then to hills covered in trees. Eventually, they turned onto a private road that wound up into the mountains. At the top was a house that didn't look like a house. It looked like a fortress made of glass and stone. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the valley below. The driveway was lined with black sedans. Thomas parked and led her inside. The interior was minimalist. White walls, dark wood floors, expensive art that Nora didn't recognize. Dante stood in the main room, staring out at the view. He turned when she entered. Miss Quinn? Mr. Moretti. Thomas, give us the room. Thomas left without a word. Dante walked to a bar in the corner and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to Nora. I don't drink. You do tonight. She took the glass but didn't drink. Dante sat down in a leather chair. What did you find? A payment to a fake company, $50,000, authorized by Claire Donovan. When? March 14th. Dante's jaw tightened. What else? Someone sent me an anonymous email telling me to check that date, and then Marco Salvatore called me. He said there are 3 traitors, not 1. Dante's eyes went cold. Marco called you? Yes. What did he say? That if I expose one traitor without finding the others, they'll disappear. He's right. So what do I do? Dante stood and walked to the window. You keep looking. You find the other 2, and you don't let anyone know what you've found. What about Claire? Leave her to me. You're going to kill her. I'm going to handle her. That's the same thing. Dante turned to face her. Do you want justice, Miss Quinn, or do you want revenge? I want the truth. The truth is that Claire Donovan sold me out. She took money from the Rossinis. She fed them information. She put my son in danger. His voice was ice. So yes, I'm going to kill her, and if that bothers you, you should leave now. Nora's hands shook. I'm not leaving. Then finish your drink and get back to work. She downed the whiskey in one burning gulp. Good, Dante said. Thomas will take you back to the safe house. Tomorrow, you keep digging. And when you find the other two, you tell me immediately. What if they find me first? Then you better hope you're as smart as I think you are. Thomas drove her back to the safe house in silence. When she walked in, Danny was on the couch watching television. He looked up. You okay? Yeah. You're lying. I know. She sat down beside him. He leaned against her shoulder. How much longer? He asked. I don't know. I'm scared. Me too. They sat like that for a long time. The next morning, Nora went back to the office. Claire wasn't there. Her desk was empty. Her computer was gone. Nora asked someone where she was. She quit, the woman said. Yesterday. No notice, just packed up and left. Nora's chest tightened. Claire was gone, which meant Dante had already moved. Nora sat down at her desk and stared at the screen. 2 traitors left. Her email chimed. Another anonymous message. Check Vincent's travel records. December 9th. Nora's blood went cold. Vincent. She pulled up the executive travel logs. December 9th. 6 months ago. Vincent Corello had taken a private flight to Miami, returned the same day. The expense report listed it as a vendor meeting. She cross-referenced the vendor. No record of any meeting. Vincent had lied about where he was going. Nora's hands trembled as she printed the record. Vincent was one of Dante's most trusted people, his right hand. If Vincent was a traitor, then Dante was already dead. He just didn't know it yet. She grabbed her phone and texted Dante. Vincent, December 9th. Miami, fake vendor meeting. The response came fast. Say nothing. Act normal. I'm handling it. Nora deleted the text and put her phone away. Across the office, Vincent walked past. He glanced at her. Their eyes met. For a split second, she saw something flicker across his face. Recognition. He knew. Nora's heart slammed against her ribs. Vincent kept walking, into his office. The door closed. She sat frozen. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Quinn? Marco's voice. You just made a very big mistake. What? Vincent knows you're looking, and now he knows you found him. How do you... Because I'm watching. I've been watching this whole time. Where are you? Close enough to see you. Far enough that you can't stop what's about to happen. What's about to happen? Vincent's going to disappear within the hour. And when he does, the third traitor will activate, and everyone in that building is going to die. The line went dead. Nora stood. Around her, people worked. Phones rang. Life continued. She looked at Vincent's office. The door was still closed. She walked toward it. Her hand reached for the handle. It turned before she could touch it. Vincent stood in the doorway. Miss Quinn, he said calmly, we need to talk. He stepped aside. Inside his office, 2 men in suits stood waiting. They had guns. Come in, Vincent said, and close the door behind you. Nora's legs wouldn't move. Now, Miss Quinn. She stepped inside. The door closed. Vincent walked to his desk and sat down. He folded his hands and looked at her like she was a problem he was about to solve. You're a smart woman, he said. Too smart for your own good. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You found Claire, and now you found me. He smiled. It was the worst thing she'd ever seen. But you made one critical mistake. What's that? You assumed Dante was in control. The words hung in the air. He's not, Vincent continued. He hasn't been for months. The Rossinis have been bleeding him dry from the inside, and by the time he realizes it, there won't be anything left. You're the third traitor. No, Miss Quinn. I'm the first. Claire and the others were just pawns, disposable. But me? He leaned forward. I'm the architect. Nora's vision blurred. Dante trusted you. And that was his mistake. Trust is weakness, and weakness gets you killed. One of the men raised his gun. Nora's breath stopped. Wait, Vincent said. Not here, too messy. Take her to the parking garage. Make it look like an accident. The men grabbed her arms. Nora fought. She kicked. She screamed. Nobody came. They dragged her toward the door. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. One of the men pulled it out and looked at the screen. "It's Dante," he said. Vincent took the phone. He answered. "Hello, Dante?" A pause. "Yes, I have her. And no, you're not getting her back." Another pause. "Because you're finished. Your empire, your legacy, all of it. By tomorrow, the Rossinis will own everything you built, and you'll be dead." He hung up. Then he looked at Nora. "Nothing personal, Miss Quinn. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time." The men dragged her out of the office, down the hall, into the elevator. The doors closed. Nora's mind raced. This was it. The end. She was going to die in a parking garage, and nobody would ever know the truth. The elevator descended. 10th floor. 9th. 8th. Nora's hand moved to her pocket. Her fingers brushed something sharp. The folded transaction record. The one she'd printed. She pulled it out and held it tight. If she was going to die, she'd make sure someone found this. 3rd floor. 2nd. The elevator stopped. Parking garage. The doors opened. Gunshots exploded through the air. The man on her left dropped. The one on her right tried to raise his weapon. Another shot. He fell. Nora stood frozen. From the shadows, Dante stepped forward. He held a gun. His face was stone. Behind him, Thomas and 3 other men fanned out, weapons raised. Dante looked at Nora. "You okay?" She couldn't speak. She nodded. "Good. Stay behind me." He moved toward the elevator. "Vincent's still upstairs," Nora managed. "Not for long." They rode the elevator back up. 12th floor. The doors opened onto chaos. People were running, screaming. Security guards shouted into radios. Dante walked through it like he owned the air itself. Vincent's office was empty. "He ran," Thomas said. "Find him." The men scattered. Dante turned to Nora. "This is over. You're done. Thomas will take you and your brother somewhere safe. Somewhere the Rossinis can't touch you." "What about Vincent?" "I'll handle Vincent." "And then what?" Dante's eyes were dark, unreadable. "Then I burn everything they built to the ground." He walked away. Nora stood in the empty office, surrounded by chaos, holding a piece of paper that proved nothing and changed everything. She'd found the traitors, but the war had just begun. Tinitz. The building emptied like a wound bleeding out. People poured through exits, some running, some walking fast with their heads down, all of them pretending they hadn't seen anything. Nora stood in the center of the 12th floor, watching the chaos dissolve around her. Within 10 minutes, the office was empty except for her and the 2 bodies in the parking garage elevator. Thomas appeared at her elbow. "We need to move." "Where's Dante?" "Hunting." "For Vincent?" "Yes." "Is he going to find him?" Thomas's expression was stone. "Vincent's already dead. He just doesn't know it yet." They took the stairs down. Emergency lights flickered in the stairwell, casting everything in sickly green. Their footsteps echoed. Nora's legs felt like they belonged to someone else. On the ground floor, Thomas led her through a service exit into an alley. A black sedan waited, engine running. He opened the back door. "Get in." She got in. The car pulled away before the door even closed. Nora stared out the window as the glass tower disappeared behind them. Somewhere inside that building, Dante was tearing apart his own empire looking for a man who'd betrayed him. And she'd been the one to hand him the knife. The driver didn't speak. Thomas sat in the front passenger seat, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and clipped. Nora caught fragments. "Secure the perimeter. No, don't engage. Wait for my signal." After 20 minutes, they pulled up in front of the safe house. Thomas got out and opened her door. "Inside. Now." She climbed the stairs. Her hands were shaking again. They hadn't stopped shaking since Vincent's office. The apartment door was open. Nora's heart stopped. She ran inside. Danny was on the couch, alive, unhurt. A man in a dark suit sat in the chair across from him, a gun resting casually on his knee. The man looked up when Nora entered. "Miss Quinn?" "Who are you?" "Joseph, I work for Dante. I've been keeping your brother company." Danny stood. "Nora?" She grabbed him and pulled him close. He was warm, solid, real. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "Yeah, I'm fine. What happened?" "Later." Thomas walked in behind her. He nodded to Joseph. "Status?" "Quiet. No movement." "Good." Stay alert. Joseph didn't move. Thomas turned to Nora. You're safe here, for now. Don't leave. Don't open the door. Don't make phone calls. How long? Until Dante finishes what he started. And if he doesn't finish it, then none of us are safe. Thomas left. The lock clicked. Nora sat down on the couch. Danny sat beside her. Joseph remained in the chair, silent as a statue. What's happening? Danny asked quietly. War. Between who? Everyone. He didn't ask anything else. He just leaned against her shoulder the way he had when he was small, before the world had taught him to be afraid of everything. The hours crawled by. Joseph didn't move, didn't speak. Nora tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vincent's face. Trust is weakness, and weakness gets you killed. At 3 a.m, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Hello? Miss Quinn? Marco Salvatore's voice. Still alive. Impressive. What do you want? To congratulate you. You found all 3 traitors. Claire, Vincent, and the third one you don't even know about yet. Nora's blood went cold. What third one? The one who's been feeding information to both sides. The one who doesn't care who wins as long as the war keeps burning. Who? Thomas Marconi. The phone slipped from her hand. Danny grabbed it before it hit the floor. Nora, what's wrong? She couldn't speak. Thomas. The man Dante trusted more than anyone. The man who'd pulled her out of that apartment. The man who'd been protecting them. Or so she'd thought. Marco's voice crackled from the phone's speaker. You don't believe me. That's fine. But ask yourself this. How did Vincent know you were coming? How did he have those men waiting in his office? Nora's mind raced. Thomas had driven her to the building that morning. Thomas had known she'd found something. Thomas had been there every step of the way. He's been playing both sides, Marco continued, feeding Dante just enough information to keep him hunting, feeding the Rossinis just enough to keep them bleeding him dry. And when the dust settles, Thomas will be the last man standing. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm bored. And because watching you stumble through this has been more entertaining than I expected. He paused. Also because you're about to walk into a trap. And I'm curious to see if you're smart enough to survive it. The line went dead. Nora grabbed the phone from Danny's hand and stood. Joseph looked up. Problem? Where's Thomas? With Dante. Why? I need to talk to him. That's not possible. Make it possible. Joseph's hand moved toward his gun. Sit down, Miss Quinn. No, I'm not asking. Danny stood beside her. Leave her alone. Joseph smiled. It was the kind of smile that promised violence. Sit down. Nora's phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen. Dante. She answered. Where are you? His voice was rough, strained. The safe house. Where are you? Warehouse District. I found Vincent. Is he alive? For now. Dante, listen to me. I don't have time for this. Thomas is the third traitor. Silence. Then Dante's voice, low and deadly. What did you say? Thomas. He's been working with the Rossinis. He's been feeding them information. He set this whole thing up. Who told you this? Marco Salvatore. And you believe him? I don't know, but you need to... Gunshots exploded through the phone, shouting, the sound of something heavy crashing, then nothing. The line went dead. Nora stared at the phone. Joseph stood. What happened? I don't know. Give me the phone. No. He raised his gun. Give me the phone. Danny stepped between them. Don't. Joseph's finger moved to the trigger. The door exploded inward. Wood shattered. The frame splintered. 3 men poured into the room. They wore black tactical gear. Their faces were covered. Joseph turned and fired. One of the men dropped. The other 2 returned fire. Joseph's chest bloomed red. He fell. Nora grabbed Danny and pulled him toward the window. Fire escape! They crashed through the window onto the rusted metal platform outside. The night air was freezing. Below them, the alley stretched dark and empty. Nora climbed down first. Danny followed. Her hands burned on the cold metal. Her feet slipped on the wet rungs. They hit the ground running. Behind them, voices shouted, Footsteps pounded down the fire escape. Nora pulled Danny into the shadows. They ran through alleys, over fences, through parking lots. Her lungs screamed. Her legs burned. They didn't stop. After 20 minutes, they collapsed behind a dumpster in an alley 3 blocks away. Danny was gasping for air. Who were those people? Rossini's, or someone working for them. What do we do? I don't know. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. The screen was cracked from the fall, but it still worked. Thomas. She stared at the name. If Marco was right, answering this call meant walking into a trap. If Marco was wrong, not answering meant abandoning Dante. She answered. Miss Quinn. Thomas's voice was calm, controlled. Where are you? Safe? No, you're not. The safe house was compromised. Joseph is dead, and there are people hunting you right now. I know. Then you need to come to me. I can protect you. Like you protected Joseph? Silence. What did you say? I know, Thomas. I know you're working with the Rossinis. I know you set this whole thing up. Who told you that? Does it matter? Yes. Because whoever told you is lying. Are they? Nora. His voice softened. It was the first time he'd used her first name. I've been with Dante for 20 years. I've bled for him. I've killed for him. I would die for him. If you think I'm a traitor, then you don't understand anything. Then explain the Miami trip. Explain how Vincent knew I was coming. Explain why the safe house got hit the moment you left. I can't explain any of that over the phone. But if you come to me, I will, face to face. Where's Dante? The warehouse. He's securing Vincent. Is he safe? For now. But not if you don't move. The Rossinis know you're alive, and they're going to keep coming until you're dead. Nora closed her eyes. Where do I go? Thomas gave her an address, an industrial park on the east side. Come alone, he said. If I see anyone else, I'll assume you're compromised and I'll disappear. Do you understand? Yes? Good. You have 30 minutes. The line went dead. Danny was staring at her. You're not actually going. I have to. He's lying. You said it yourself. I don't know what I said. I don't know anything anymore. Then don't go. We can run. We can leave the city. We can't run forever, Danny. Eventually someone catches us, and when they do, we're dead. So what? You're just going to walk into a trap? Maybe. Or maybe Thomas is telling the truth and I'm about to save Dante's life. You don't owe him anything. Yes, I do. Why? Because he gave us a chance, and maybe it was selfish. Maybe he was using us. But it was still more than anyone else ever gave us. Danny's eyes were wet. I don't want you to die. I'm not going to die. You don't know that. No, but I'm going anyway. She stood. Her legs felt like jelly. Stay here, she said. Hide. If I'm not back in 2 hours, you take the money in my bag and you run. You go as far as it takes you and you don't look back. Nora, promise me. He was crying now. I promise. She kissed his forehead. Then she left. The industrial park was 40 minutes away on foot. Nora walked through streets she didn't recognize, past buildings that looked abandoned, through neighborhoods where the streetlights had given up. By the time she reached the address, her feet were bleeding inside her shoes. The building was a warehouse. Concrete. No windows. A single metal door. She knocked. No answer. She tried the handle. It turned. She stepped inside. The warehouse was dark. Empty. Her footsteps echoed on concrete. Thomas? No response. She walked deeper into the space. Her eyes adjusted slowly. Shapes emerged from shadow. Shipping crates, pallets, industrial equipment covered in dust. Then she saw him. Dante. He was tied to a chair in the center of the warehouse. His face was bruised. Blood dripped from his nose. His eyes were half closed. Nora ran toward him. Dante! A hand grabbed her from behind and slammed her to the ground. Her vision exploded white. Pain shot through her skull. When her eyes focused, Thomas was standing over her. He had a gun. I'm sorry, Miss Quinn, he said quietly. I really am. He raised the weapon. A gunshot cracked through the air. Thomas staggered. Blood bloomed across his shoulder. He turned. Vincent Corello stood in the doorway. He held a gun. His suit was torn. His face was covered in blood. "Hello, Thomas," Vincent said. Thomas fired. Vincent dove behind a crate. Gunshots echoed through the warehouse. Concrete chips exploded. Metal screamed. Nora crawled toward Dante. Her hands fumbled with the ropes binding his wrists. "Nora," his voice was barely a whisper. "Get out of here." "Not without you." "You don't understand. This was the plan." "What?" "I needed them to think they'd won. I needed them all in one place." The ropes came loose. Dante stood. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket. "How long have you been awake?" Nora breathed. "The whole time." He walked toward the gunfight, calm, controlled. Thomas saw him coming. His eyes went wide. "Dante!" Dante shot him 3 times. Chest, stomach, throat. Thomas fell. Vincent stepped out from behind the crate. He and Dante stared at each other across the warehouse. "It's over," Dante said. "Not yet." Vincent raised his gun. Dante fired first. Vincent dropped. Silence filled the warehouse like water. Dante walked to Vincent's body and looked down. Then he turned to Thomas, still breathing, barely. Dante knelt beside him. "Why?" he asked quietly. Thomas coughed. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Money, power. The same reason everyone does anything. I trusted you. I know, that was your mistake." Thomas's eyes went empty. Dante stood. He looked at Nora. "You were right, about all of it. Marco told me. Marco's dead. I had him killed 3 hours ago." Nora's stomach dropped. "What?" "He was playing both sides, same as Thomas, same as Vincent. They were all working together, and now they're all dead. So it's over." "Not quite." Dante walked to the far end of the warehouse and pulled open a metal door. Inside was a small room, and inside that room were 4 men on their knees, their hands bound, their faces bruised. Rossini soldiers. "These are the last loose ends," Dante said. "The ones who ordered the hit on Marco, the ones who've been bleeding my organization dry." He raised his gun. "Dante, don't!" He fired. 4 shots, 4 bodies. Then silence. Nora stood frozen. Dante walked back to her. His face was empty, carved from stone. "This is what it costs," he said quietly. "This is what survival looks like in my world. You wanted to understand. Now you do." Nora couldn't speak. Dante holstered his gun. "Come on, we're leaving." "What about them?" She gestured to the bodies. "Someone will clean it up. They always do." They walked out of the warehouse into the cold night air. A black sedan waited at the curb. The driver opened the door. Dante gestured for Nora to get in. She did. He sat beside her. The car pulled away. "Where are we going?" Nora asked. "To get your brother, then somewhere safe." "There's no such thing as safe." "Not anymore." "No, but there's far enough away that it doesn't matter." They drove to the alley where Nora had left Danny. He was still there, hiding behind the dumpster. When he saw Nora, he ran to her. She caught him and held him tight. "It's over," she whispered. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Dante watched them. His expression was unreadable. "Get in," he said. They got in. The car drove for hours, out of the city, through suburbs, into the countryside. The sun rose slowly, turning the sky from black to gray to pale gold. Eventually, they stopped in front of a house. Small, quiet, surrounded by trees. "This is yours," Dante said. "Paid for. No mortgage, no paper trail. Everything you need is inside." Nora stared at the house. "Why?" "Because you earned it. You found the traitors, you saved my life, and you did it even though it almost killed you." "I didn't do it for a reward." "I know, that's why I'm giving you one." He handed her an envelope. Inside were keys, documents, and a check for $200,000. "This is too much." "No, it's not nearly enough, but it's all I can give you without making you a target again." Danny was staring at the house like it might disappear. "What about you?" Nora asked. "I rebuild. I consolidate. I make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And if it does, then I handle it the same way I always have." Nora looked into his eyes. They were tired. Human. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me. Just live. Take care of your brother. Be happy. That's all I want." He turned to leave. "Dante," he stopped. "What you said in the warehouse about trust being weakness, do you believe that?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I used to, but then I met you, and you proved me wrong." "How?" "Because you trusted me even when you shouldn't have, and somehow we both survived." He got back in the car. It drove away. Nora and Danny stood in front of the house, watching the dust settle on the road. "Is it really ours?" Danny asked. "Yeah, I think it is." They walked inside. The house was furnished, clean. Light poured through windows that looked out onto forest. There was food in the kitchen, clothes in the closets, everything they needed to start over. Danny ran to the back room and shouted, "Nora, there are 2 beds!" She smiled despite everything. 2 beds, such a small thing, such an impossible luxury. She walked to the window and looked out at the trees. Somewhere in the city, Dante was cleaning up the mess, burying bodies, rewriting history, building his empire back from the ashes. And here she was, in a house she never could have afforded, with money she never could have earned, with a brother who was safe. It should have felt like victory, but all she felt was tired. She pulled out her phone. The screen was still cracked. She opened her contacts and scrolled to Dante's number. She stared at it for a long time. Then she deleted it. Some chapters needed to end completely. No epilogue, no looking back. Danny appeared beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think I am." "What do we do now?" Nora looked at him, really looked at him. He was still too thin, still too pale, but his eyes were bright, hopeful. "We live," she said. "We go to school. We make friends. We do normal things." Normal. Danny tested the word like it was foreign. "I don't know if I remember how to do that." "Then we figure it out, together." He smiled. Outside, the sun climbed higher. Birds sang. The world moved forward like nothing had happened, because to the world, nothing had. 2 people had walked out of darkness and into light. That was all. It was enough. That night, Nora made dinner. Real food, not canned soup or ramen, pasta with vegetables and actual sauce. They ate at a table. Together. Danny talked about what school he wanted to go to, what he wanted to study, what he wanted to be when he grew up. Normal things, impossible things. After dinner, Nora walked outside onto the porch. The air was cool. Stars scattered across the sky like broken glass. She thought about Dante, about Vincent, about Thomas and Claire and Marco and all the bodies left behind. She thought about the diner, about Frank firing her, about the envelope full of money that had started everything. One choice, one moment, and her entire life had changed. She wondered if she'd do it again. If she could go back to that booth and see the envelope, would she still return it? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Because that moment had proven something she'd almost forgotten. That doing the right thing mattered, even when it cost everything, even when it almost killed you, especially then. The door opened behind her. Danny stepped out. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Not yet, too quiet." "You'll get used to it." "Will you?" She looked at him. "I don't know, maybe." They sat on the porch steps together. The night stretched around them, vast and peaceful. "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" Danny asked. "Dante?" "I don't know. Maybe. Do you want to?" Nora was quiet for a long time. "Part of me does," she said finally. "Part of me wants to know if he's okay, if he rebuilt, if he survived. And the other part? The other part knows that world isn't ours anymore. We walked away, and we need to stay away. Even if he needs help? Especially then." Danny nodded. He understood. 6 months passed. Nora got a job at a bookstore in the nearest town. It was quiet work, peaceful. She helped customers find books. She organized shelves. She didn't have to worry about rent or food or survival. For the first time in her life, she could breathe. Danny enrolled in school. He made friends. He joined the track team. His medication was covered by the health insurance Dante had arranged. His levels stayed stable. He smiled more. They both did. Sometimes, late at night, Nora would check the news, looking for stories about crime bosses, about gang wars, about bodies found in warehouses. She never found anything. Either Dante was being careful, or the world had moved on. She hoped it was both. 1 year after everything happened, Nora received a package in the mail. No return address, just her name on a brown envelope. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Dante standing on a terrace overlooking a city at night. His back was to the camera. The lights below looked like stars. On the back of the photo, someone had written 3 words in clean, precise handwriting. Thank you. Nora stared at the photo for a long time. Then she put it in a drawer, closed, hidden. Some stories didn't need to be revisited. They just needed to be remembered. That night, she and Danny cooked dinner together. They talked about his upcoming track meet, about the book she was reading, about nothing and everything, normal things, beautiful things. After dinner, Nora stood on the porch and looked out at the trees. The world was quiet, peaceful. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like she was finally learning how to swim. 2 years passed, then 3. Danny graduated high school. He got accepted to college on a partial scholarship. Nora cried when he showed her the letter. I couldn't have done it without you, he said. Yes, you could have. Maybe, but I wouldn't have wanted to. He left for college in the fall. Nora helped him move into his dorm room. It was small and cramped and perfect. When she hugged him goodbye, she held on longer than she needed to. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I love you, he said. She drove home alone. The house felt bigger without him, emptier, but not in a bad way. It felt like possibility. Nora went back to work. She was promoted to assistant manager. She started taking night classes at the community college, literature, history, things she'd never had time for before. She made friends, went to dinner parties, laughed at bad jokes. She built a life that didn't revolve around survival. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying. One evening, 5 years after everything had happened, Nora was closing up the bookstore when a man walked in. He wore a suit, expensive, dark. Her heart stopped. But it wasn't Dante. It was someone younger, early 30s. He had kind eyes. We're closed, Nora said. I know, I'm sorry. I was hoping you could help me find something. What are you looking for? A book, for my sister. She's going through a hard time, and I thought maybe reading something hopeful might help. Nora smiled. What kind of hard time? The kind where everything feels impossible, where survival is all she can think about. Nora walked to a shelf near the back. She pulled out a book. Simple cover, worn spine. Try this one, she said. The man looked at the title. What's it about? A woman who loses everything and finds something better. Does it have a happy ending? It has a real ending, which is better. The man smiled. Thank you. He paid and left. Nora locked the door behind him and turned off the lights. As she walked to her car, she thought about the woman in the book, the one who'd lost everything. She thought about how that story had ended, not with fireworks or grand gestures, just with a quiet moment of realization that the worst was over, that tomorrow would come, that life would continue. She thought about her own story, about where it had started, about where it had led, and she realized something. She wasn't that woman anymore, the one who'd served coffee in a dying diner, the one who'd been invisible. She was someone new, someone stronger, someone who'd walked through fire and come out the other side, not unburned, but alive. And that was enough. Nora drove home. She made dinner. She read a book. She went to bed. And for the first time in her entire life, she slept without fear, because she knew the truth now. Survival wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. The next morning, she woke to sunlight streaming through her window. She made coffee. She ate breakfast. She got ready for work. Normal things. Beautiful things. As she walked out the door, her phone buzzed. A text from Danny. Made the dean's list. Thanks for everything, Nora. I love you. She smiled. And somewhere, in a city far away, Dante Moretti stood on a terrace overlooking his rebuilt empire. He thought about a woman who'd returned his money, who'd saved his life, who'd walked away when she could have stayed. He wondered if she was happy. He hoped she was. Because in the end, that was all that mattered. Not power, not money, not control. Just the knowledge that some people still chose kindness, even when it cost them everything. And that choice, that single, impossible choice, had changed them both forever. The sun rose higher, the world turned, and life continued. Not perfectly, not easily, but honestly. And in a world built on lies, that was the greatest victory of all.